Hey guys, welcome back to RPO Restorations. For those of you that saw the last video I posted, and if you haven't, I'll include a link up top and in the description if you want to check it out. I did a walk around of my 93 Blazer, show you guys what I've done and where I'm going with it. And that also means that I've reached the halfway point in my revival of this truck. So today I'm going to be refreshing the entire, or most of the entire drivetrain. We're going to do the rear differential fluid, change out the universal joints, change the transfer case fluid, change a couple of seals, and then finally change out the front axle fluid. So stay tuned, we're going to jump right in. You guys can follow along. Let's go. Okay, so last night I swapped out the differential cover and put a new gasket on there. Now I used an RTV gasket, specifically one made for rear differentials. There's one reason I do this, because in my experience, when you're dealing with a vehicle that's 25, 30, 40 years old, invariably someone has come along and decided they were going to change this out and jam the biggest flathead screwdriver they could find under that cover and gouge somewhere along this seal. So a paper or rubber gasket just won't cut it. That's the only reason I use the RTV type sealant. I really don't like to, but in this case, rather than deal with a leak day or two after I fill it, I just decided to do it that way. My personal experience, I just find it easier than redoing it again, or buying a gasket and then finding a nice gouge when I take the cover off. Oh, and I did this off camera because there are a million videos out there about changing your diff fluid. I'll include a link to a really good one from Suburban Ranch in the description if you need a little help. All right, now we've moved around to our other side of our rear differential and our drive shaft. You'll notice I've already marked everything off with paint, created a nice line along everything because this needs to be put back in the same way it came out because it's balanced. Now, all we have to do is remove these bolts and we should be able to slip this guy right out of here. All right, here we are. We have our drive shaft out of the vehicle. Here are our universal joints, which we are going to be replacing. These actually aren't too bad, but they are original, so they're 30 years old. So it's probably a good idea to swap them out anyway. So I got the drive shaft out and I decided to change things up a little bit. Drive shaft looked pretty cruddy. In fact, as I was handling it, there were rust flakes coming off of my hands. The universal joints were 30 years old. I have new ones, but I just decided, you know what, I'm going to change out as much hardware as I possibly can. So I had to call a little bit of an audible, but got some new parts. I'm under a rain delay. So show you what I got, show you how I got it out. All right, so here we go. I have a new drive shaft with new universal joints already attached. And I also decided to pick up a new end yoke. So that's where we're at. Obviously, marking everything really doesn't matter now because it's all getting replaced. But still, it's good to know you have to do it. All right, so here we are back underneath the truck. Next step will be to pry this old leaking seal out and replace it with a new one. And we're out. We've got our old seal out. We'll just wipe down the surface where the new one goes. Everything should feel smooth. Just get your finger in there, see if you feel any burrs, anything unusual. You might have to file that down or Scotch-Brite it down, or depending on how bad it is, or get some emery cloth in there. We'll simply take our new seal and tap it in. Make sure you get it flush all the way around. We're looking good. Now that the seal's back on, it's time to replace our yoke. do the best that we can to get everything oriented the way it was when we took it off. Actually, before I do it, I want to grease these splines a little bit. We'll do our best to keep everything oriented the way it was when we took it off. A new washer and a new nut. Prior to removing this, I tried to mark the orientation of the old nut and then transferred it over to the new one. And I also took a pretty good estimate of the amount of torque that the nut was under and counted the threads that were left. Very important that you get everything as close as possible back to the way it was. And I think we are good. All right, now we're going to spin around and shift focus to this transfer case output shaft seal in the back. That also needs to go because it is leaking pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and pry that out, replace it with a new one while we're at it. All right, we got our old one out, pried it out just like the previous seal. And now we'll make sure our mating surface is good. There's no dirt, foreign material in there. Making sure everything is nice and smooth, ready for the new seal. Keep in mind, these transfer case seals have a notch which goes at the top and a weep hole which goes at the bottom. So just make sure you get the orientation right when you put it back in. And here we go. It took a little bit of finessing, but I got the new seal in, sitting nice and flush against the case. Now I'm going to go ahead up and drain our front differential fluid. All right, back over to the front differential now. We're going to drain our fluid. And that actually doesn't look too bad. Alright, so now we have all the fluids out of both differential. We've changed our transfer case rear output shaft seal and our pinion seal on our rear differential. It's time to pop in the new drive shaft. We got our drive shaft back in. Also put the retaining bolts on there for the straps, finger tight with a little bit of blue Loctite. Now all that's left to do is torque these down to 15 foot-pounds. All right, now that that part of our refresh is done, it's time to refill our front and rear differential. Both take 80 W90 gear oil. All right, so roughly 4.5 quarts of gear oil later, here we are. I'm gonna call it a day and end the video now. I did not do the transfer case of the transmission because those are going to come at a later time. Plus, I kind of sort of suspect that I may have a problem with the transfer case input shaft seal. So we're gonna deal with that in a full video. Guys, thank you for tuning in. I stink like gear oil now and I got a lot of cleaning up to do. So I'll see you on the next one.